ready. Hello, I'm Elizabeth Ray, Westminster Woods on Julington Creek resident, United States Navy veteran. I'm pleased to welcome you to our Veterans Day program. In 1787, our founding fathers presented the citizens of the New World with our Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. A new nation was born on the premise that man could direct his own destiny. The great experiment was begun, a government for the people, of the people, and by the people. For 233 years, and still counting, Americans have believed in and fought for the basic rights and freedoms written into our Constitution. Men and women have raised their right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. We are gathered here today as our groups of citizens all across the United States to honor those who took that oath and met the challenges to preserve the promise that is America. Please sit back and enjoy the presentation as we thank all of those who for over 200 years have stepped forward to say, I will serve.
Color guard, attention! Audience, please rise for the presentation of the colors. Color guard, advance. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard, raise the colors. Scouts, salute. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two, color guard, reform. Color guard, about face. Color guard, dismissed.
Please pray with me. Gracious and all-loving God, on this Veterans Day, we give thanks to you for all the veterans who have served in our armed forces to preserve our freedom and liberty, especially those who paid the ultimate price with their lives. We especially hold dear all those we know personally who have served, including our neighbors here at Westminster Woods. Teach us how to truly show our gratitude to them. We also remember the family members of those who have served, recognizing that the sacrifices made by the men and women in uniform are shared by those who remain home. Yet, even as we remember those who have protected us, we pray for a time of true peace when we would not need that protection, when no one would be called upon to make that ultimate sacrifice. Attune our national leaders to your spirit, that the policies they pursue would be a reflection of your reign on earth, that justice would roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Let your kingdom come on earth. All this we ask in the precious name of our Savior. Amen.
Tell a little bit about my experiences in World War II with my submarine duty. I was a diesel man in the one engine room. We had 4 Fairbanks Morse powerful engines, and I was in number 1 along with my leader, and we went out on the patrols, and generally we was looking for probably 45 days, and it didn't take too long to find some Japanese ships around there, Chinese, and we attacked them. And the one we attacked blew up when the torpedo hit it. And his partner, who was at the end of the number of Japanese ships, come after us and really depth charged us. In fact, was all day long taking depth charges, and fortunately none of them hit us square where I wouldn't be able to be here talking about it. And so after they had bombed us all day long, we left there and got another ship possibilities. So the thing that we find that these trips that we go on from off to the main base that we are operating out of give us a good spot to start our patrol runs. And we did that, and we had this one Japanese leading it party of ships, commercial ships, through this area that we were policing, and the captain hit the leading one and blew it up completely. And so, of course, their ships that they were protecting scattered and got back into a fleet, and the other one kept after us, and about most all the day, and was fortunate for us that it didn't hit us square. And then another time we were called to duty to get with another party and chase down to where we had some aviators in the water. And we went all day long steaming just as hard as we could, and finally found them and took them aboard. And of course they were gracious for that. And we had a good run, and we did a lot of damage, and was good at getting the party that we needed.
Mr. Campbell, tell me the most important question about your time on the submarine. How was the food?
It's probably most of us had pretty good stew.
Mm-hmm.
Our stews, we nicknamed him Slop Shoot.
Oh boy.
That was his nickname. And he took it graciously and did a good job, and as did the whole crew. And the time that we were being dip charged was like all day and all evening. And there was a joke, you know, if you had to go to the toilet or anything, why, sometimes you might get messy. But it's just one of those things. You don't move around when you're being dip charged.
Now, the big difference between the diesel subs and the nuclear subs, I was nuclear, and I know you were diesel. Now, do you remember?
Well, we never had a problem. They had some problems on some other boats before us, but they got most of those problems handled as after we went in commission. And we found we had a good solid ship, and when we went, had to go all day long one time to pick up, there was 5 aviators that had got shot down, and we were the one that was the closest, which still took us all day long to get there just as hard as we could go. And we picked them up, and we had one of the first photographers on our boat. So that was a blessing. So it's still on the records.
Oh, I got
you can pick it up, just getting Sea Owl, and then it'll bring you up to that story where we've been depth charged and all that. So as far as I know, it's still on there.
Were you on more than one sub?
No, I just a Sea Owl, and that was enough. But it was a good ship, well made, and I know I was in the big engine room, and those 1,600 horsepower Fairbanks Moors were good steady captains, or the use of the machinery was good and solid, and we were able to, and it was in state, it was, I think they blew it up in about the 50s or 60s.
What, did you just do one tour in the Navy, or did you stay in
No,
longer?
just one tour on the Sea Owl, and they wanted me to stay because a lot of them was retiring, and I was single, and I almost shipped over, but I decided that I wouldn't. I'd take my chances on the outside. And so almost immediately I met my wife Ida, and it wasn't long we was married, and so we spent a lot of time in Panama. We was stationed down there in the Panama, and we had a great life, and we enjoyed it. So Then we decided to get out, and I got a job in Daytona, so everything was all right.
Would you recommend to a young person to go on submarines?
I think it's a good thing to do for some of these young folks, because it's a great life, and submarine I'd recommend to anybody that wants excitement and challenges. But submarine duty is just one of those things that grow on you.
Yeah, it was a good 3 years of my life also.
Yeah. Well, it's a great life if you don't weaken.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time
You're
to
welcome.
talk about
anytime.
your days.
Just get my hat, did you?
And today we plan to capture a bit of living history. That means Herb. Herb's 95 now, and he's going to take us back 76 years to that dawn of June 6, 1944, a date forever to be known as D-Day, the Normandy invasion. He put his life on the line for his country that day. There was probably daylight for half of that date, but during those daylight hours, there were 10,000 Allied casualties. This was the largest invasion force the world had ever seen. Well, Herb was there that day. He's one of the few soldiers surviving to tell us his experience that day. Herb has earned his place in that brave group that is now called the Greatest Generation.
What do you think? My name's Herbert Griffin. I was born in Oldham, Georgia, and in 1941 I got a, not 41, but 43. I got a summons to report to the draft board, and they said, Uncle Sam said, I want you. And so I went in the Army, went to Fort Camp Landing, Florida. And so the time came that we were supposed to go to France. We got on this landing craft. It would hold 36 people. And we had just got eating Spam sandwiches, and it was so, the weather was terrible,
Very rough.
and it was just rocking that boat, and splashing the water up on it and all, and it's all standing up. There wasn't no place to sit, so we were throwing up on each other and on the floor, and it was slick down there. You know, you couldn't get a good foothold. And so pretty soon, though, I could start hearing the gunfire. I could start hearing action going on ahead of us. But man, we talked among ourselves. We didn't, nobody, what's y'all kids?
Can I ask you,
You
were describing how rough the weather was and how
right.
tough that was on those landing craft that only held like 36 people, you said. I read that the troop transport ships had to anchor 12 miles offshore. And so you had to get in that landing craft and go 12 miles over rough water before you even got to the beach.
Oh man.
No wonder you were all sick. Plus everyone was uptight. And then I read that some of those landing craft didn't go close enough to the beach, and when they discharged their infantrymen, some of them sunk because the water was too deep.
see, my basic training never covered any beaches or never covered any boats or nothing like that. I was just trained for infantryman, a rifleman in the infantry. That's all I was trained for. And of course, we had to learn to shoot a machine gun, a mortar, and a grenade rifle. And so I knew we had to do that in the training. I was what they call a heavy weapons outfit, a heavy weapons. And but I never did fire one in action, and I just had my 21 M1. But anyway, we got closer and closer to all that noise. And see, they were shooting them big guns out there 10 miles out to Normandy. They lobbing them over.
Trying to hit the beaches ahead of, before the troops hit that.
That's
beach.
right. And there wasn't no place to hide. There wasn't no place to take cover. Everything's the beaches, water in the beach. And that big cliff, that cliff was, oh man, it 50 miles down there. And you couldn't get there wasn't no place to hide. And we get as close as we could to the cliff. But them Germans had them pillboxes, you know.
Yeah, they were up high,
That's
shooting
right.
down at you.
And they call them bunkers. And they stayed in them things a long time before the war ever started. They had cots in there, and they had place to warm up things, and so it was. But I never seen one, never heard of one, and so the only way you're gonna get into them was from the backside. You couldn't get them from the front, because that concrete was, I don't know how many inches thick. Machine gun and all, it wouldn't touch it. So we had to get special forces to come around the back and climb up on the ropes and go in the back way. So we had, of course, they used a lot of grenades and all. And
which one of the landings?
I went to Utah.
You went to Utah.
And then we had our hands full doing what we had to do. We're trying to save ourselves, man. You had no protection whatsoever, and with all that equipment on, man, I'm telling you, and we didn't use our gas mask. I didn't even take a gas mask with me because they said we wasn't gonna be no gas. So I put some candy bars in my pack, and they melted. They melted down. But anyway, I began to see bodies hit the sand on the beach. And them beaches down here in Jacksonville, that beach, ain't nothing side of that. That's the widest beach I ever seen. We didn't have time to look at everything, but because we got the Germans on the run, and you put the heat on them, and we got to Cherbourg. That's one of the first ports that we got to, was Cherbourg, and we captured 200 prisoners right there. They were in a two-story house, and they was in snipers outside, and they loved them two-story houses because they got a lot of place to hide. There's three things that I didn't like. I didn't want. I hated a sniper. A landmine.
Right.
And a plane that's straight, come out of the sky so fast you couldn't move. And I would hate the thought that they was gonna make me a sniper, because you know you're gonna kill somebody, and that's a fact. So we went up in them two-story buildings and flushed them Germans out. And you never know when one's going to stick a head around the corner and blast your head off. And but you know, the job had to be done. Nobody wanted to do it, but I couldn't stay over here and watch my buddies go over there and get in the line of fire. So I did what I had to do, and then we went to St. Lo. St. Lo, France is where I got hurt. And they had a particular sound to their machine guns, like spurt.
You could tell the difference.
That's right. And ours has got a pop, pop, tut, 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 tut. You could always tell the difference. But it was water cooled. They put it on top of them hedgerows and they just burned them down almost to the ground. I mean, it's hot. That barrel's hot. Because he shot them machine guns as fast as you could load them in. When we hit the beach, we had them on a run all the time. They were backing up. It wasn't like we had a few standoffs and all. We did at St. Lo. We had a pretty good standoff there until they got them big 88s coming in, and we couldn't hold off the ground with them. That's what they hit me, an 88 shell, and so we got settled down as firing back and forth with that machine gun, and you couldn't stick your head around the hedgerow, you won't get it blowed off. That's all there was to it. Because they were firing at the end of the hedgerow. They were firing at them with their machine guns. So I lay there with my arm like that, with my head down like that, and a shell from 88 got me right through that arm.
So you got a
Shell come right, I mean,
a piece of the
the
shell.
fragment, yeah.
Yeah.
And man, you have never seen any blood come in out of anything like it was pumping out like it was pumping it. And we was running short on
Medics.
Red Cross guys, and so they bandaged it up the best way they could, temporary thing. And there was a lot of action right there, and that's where we got them turned around in St. Lo. I won't never forget St. Lo. I won't forget a lot of them, but that one there. So one thing though that aggravated me, that was the evening we was going to have a hot meal. A truck was going to bring some hot meals in to us. We was over eating them K-rations. We had, plenty to eat, but it wasn't like a hot meal. So at 5 o'clock in the evening is when I got hurt. So they took me away. I couldn't get no hot meal. And on the way to the first aid station, that's all I could think about was that hot meal that I missed.
Well, at least it took your mind off of your wound.
Ain't that the truth? I said, doggone it, I've been waiting all these days for this hot meal.
Not fair.
Still didn't get it.
Just not fair.
And that's right, it wasn't fair. So I stayed in that hospital 7 days, and they put me on a C-47 and sent me back to England. And I stayed there 5 months for put me back to the States. I was in an amputation ward for 2 months, and I was the only one that didn't have a limb on. The doctor, I begged him. I have never begged anybody like I did that. I said, please, I'll do anything you tell me to do, but don't take my arm off. And here I am being selfish about it, because them guys already lost a limb. Some of them lost limbs, legs, arms. One guy lost all his limbs, and he was laying up on that bed. But they were so jolly. I mean, they took it so good. They was hollering at one another, "You one-legged so-and-so," you know. And here I am crying about going to lose an arm. Well, I was concerned about it. I mean, who wouldn't be, you know? And so they gave in to me, and they kept an eye on me. And there was a guy, this cousin, I had a first cousin that was in the Air Force, stationed in England, fighter planes. So he found out where I was at, and so he got in touch with the right people, so he got a ride to where I was at in the hospital. Surprised me, I didn't know he was coming. So, and he came one afternoon, about 5 o'clock. And man, you ain't never seen anybody so happy to see somebody. Or somebody back home. Ooh, I couldn't believe my eyes. So he spent the night there, and we talked, man, we talked all night long. That's one of the things that I got the most kick out of, just seeing somebody that I...
Oh, yeah. It had been months and months and months since you talked about it and seen anybody, family, and this is a surprise. You weren't even expecting him, and he shows up. That must have brought tears to your eyes.
I know it, man. I tell you, like I say, I couldn't sleep all night. I had to catch up at what was going on back home. But anyway, that 5 months there was a very eventful stay that I stayed, and I got to see all the nurses, and I got a 2-pound note, English note. All the nurses signed their name on it.
That's a keeper. That's a treasure.
That's a keeper, it sure is. And what's that?
They saved your arm. That hospital saved your arm.
Let me tell you, man, I'm going to tell you, that was worth something. I wish I could have stayed in contact with them, but during that period of time, there ain't no way I could do it. But,
no.
It was, but...
Well...
I really thanked them, though, because it was... They listened to me, and I'm surprised that they did, because they got a job to do like everybody else. If they're going to do what's best for the patient. When I got back to the States, they sent me back to Staten Island, New York, McCloskey General Hospital in New York. And that's the second time I had seen the Statue of Liberty. And it was just getting dark. I mean, it was, you know, and we were on a hospital ship. It was a captured German ship. And we stopped out there in Staten Island. And we like to turn the boat over. Everybody's trying to go over there. So they kept saying, "Get back, get back, get back." So we got to Staten Island in the hospital, and they told me, they told us all we could have anything we wanted and as much as we wanted. First thing I could think about was milk. I got so tired of that powdered milk and that powdered eggs, so they gave me a half a gallon milk. I don't think I ever took it down.
You chug-a-lug.
Man, I could chug-a-lug. But I thought my stomach was going to freeze, man. It was so cold.
Oh.
But from there, we stayed there about 5 or 6 days. And then they're going to put us on a train that goes close to your home. You know how that is. So we went out to where we got on the train at. I heard somebody mention Texas. I said, "Oh no, I ain't close to my home." I thought I was going to Fort McClellan or somewhere in Georgia. That would have been closer than Texas. And so we had the MPs out there. You ain't going nowhere with MPs. So I asked one of them, I said, where's this thing going? He said, it's going to Temple, Texas. I said, well, by the way of where? So, but we did go through New Orleans. We had a 7-hour layover in New Orleans. That you? When we went on furlough, I stopped in New Orleans, and man, that train was going probably over 40 miles an hour. It stopped at every big trail, and but I was so happy. And there wasn't no air conditioning, there wasn't nothing. You couldn't tell what color your uniform was. It didn't matter to me. I didn't care if it was ragged, whatever. I was getting to go home. So, and you know, New Orleans, you know that, it's a Navy town. And we didn't see no Army. We felt out of place, but I got discharged July the 30th, 1945.
Why?
I didn't last long on the front line, but
Yeah, but you came home.
I know it, but
So many didn't.
but I put a lot of fighting in them short period of time.
From D-Day to the time you got wounded, how many months?
It was 2 months.
2 months.
2 months. What I wanted to do is to go to Paris. That was not just to see Paris, but if that was my goal, to go all the way to Paris before the Germans surrendered. I know they're going to surrender, but I didn't make it.
Well, you had quite an experience over there at a very tender age.
Well, I tell you, I just hit the high spots. Some things remind you of something else, you know.
Well, we're so happy that you came back.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you this, if I felt the way I did then and hadn't got hurt, I like the military, I like the procedures, I probably stayed in. I wasn't a military man, but I like the procedures, I like the discipline, I like the way you could work yourself up to better rank and everything. I did like that opportunity to do that. I sure did. I liked everything about it.
Hello. Laura Staten and myself have the great privilege of reading off all the names of all the veterans who served, who live currently at Westminster Woods on Julington Creek, and we would like to thank you all. Clinton Bud Atterbury, U.S. Navy. Glenn Barnes, U.S. Air Force. Dwight Bailey, U.S. Army. Howard Beardsley, U.S. Navy. William Benedicts, U.S. Air Force. James Blake, U.S. Navy. Walter Brinkman, U.S. Air Force. Dick Bresson, U.S. Army. Ed Berge, U.S. Army. James Campbell, U.S. Navy. James Caress, U.S. Navy. Raymond Carnes, U.S. Navy. James Cohen, U.S. Air Force. Walter Cox, U.S. Army. J. Paul Cruz, U.S. Army. George Dick Dickinson, U.S. Army. Dave Dingfield, U.S. Army. Ed Duncan, U.S. Navy. William Durham, U.S. Marine Corps. Larry Edwards, U.S. Marine Corps. Charles Eichner, U.S. Army. Reed Eichner, Army Corps of Engineers. Odell Eller, U.S. Air Force.
James Etzkorn, U.S. Navy. Bill Fern, U.S. Army. George Fink, U.S. Navy. Michael Fotianos, U.S. Army. Dan Gallagher, U.S. Army. Ramsey Geyer, U.S. Navy. Ed Goosen, U.S. Navy. Ed Gray, U.S. Navy. Herb Griffin, U.S. Army. Joe Garul, U.S. Coast Guard. Bob Gustafson, U.S. Army. Kent Halsey, U.S. Air Force. Taylor Hanley, U.S. Air Force. Mel Hebert, U.S. Army Air Corps. Larry Heneyes, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy. William Bill Hiller, U.S. Marine Corps. Donald Hoffecker, U.S. Army. Robert Holland, U.S. Marine Reserves. Cam Hoover, U.S. Navy. Charles Kinder, U.S. Air Force. Rex King, U.S. Marine Corps. Bob Larson, U.S. Navy. Wayne Letizia, U.S. Air Force.
Richard Levin, U.S. Air Force. Alfred Lewis, U.S. Navy. Donald Lohman, U.S. Army. Thomas Mackner, U.S. Coast Guard. Aaron Magel, U.S. Navy. Craig Marshall, U.S. Navy. John McCormick, U.S. Navy. Alistair L. McCoy, U.S. Air Force. Lester McCullough, U.S. Marine Corps and U.S. Air Force. Lou Mucci, U.S. Air Force. Richard Mintz, U.S. Marine Corps. Howard Moss, U.S. Air Force. Michael Nash, U.S. Navy. Arthur Neeson, U.S. Air Force. Raymond Noble, U.S. Army. Henry Park, U.S. Navy. Daniel Pazilski, U.S. Army. Otto Peach, U.S. Air Force. Gerald Powell, U.S. Army. Don Raitt, U.S. Marine Corps. Elizabeth Ray, U.S. Navy. Steve Ray, U.S. Navy. William Richardson, U.S. Navy.
Thomas Rosman, U.S. Army. Roy Skameka, U.S. Air Force. Marshall Schoonmaker, U.S. Army. John Scott, U.S. Air Force. Denise Shea, U.S. Navy. Wayne Sims, U.S. Army. Roy Slingo, U.S. Navy. Bob Smith, U.S. Navy. William Snell, U.S. Navy. Richard Stearns, U.S. Navy. Richard Strickland, U.S. Coast Guard. Charles Stewart, U.S. Navy. Anne Sullivan, U.S. Army Nurse Corps. William Talley, U.S. Army. James Towert, U.S. Air Force. Irwin Vaith, U.S. Army. E.J. Vincent, U.S. Army. William Walker, U.S. Army. Charles Warwick, U.S. Navy. Jack Whitmill, U.S. Coast Guard. Don Williams, U.S. Army. Leonard Wilson, U.S. Army. Wilbur Wilson, U.S. Army. Wynne Willard, U.S. Navy. Army.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For where'er we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Marines.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
Coast Guard.
We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in Thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, I, Coast Guard, we are for you.
Navy.
Anchors aweigh, my boys, anchors aweigh. Farewell to foreign shores, we sail at break of day. Through our last night ashore, drink to the foam, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
horse.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from